This is Dad Mentality. I am Rodney Glover. I'm your host. So we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves.
Hello, and welcome to Dad Mentality. I'm your host, Rodney Glover, aka the Beast One. Welcome, everybody. We have a great show ahead of us. We have a guest with us today. We actually have a guest host as well. I don't do it by myself, but my man Al Bands unfortunately had a family event that he had to attend. We are recording 3 days after our first recording because, Easter Sunday's coming this Sunday, so we decided to record a little bit early. But we brought in our guest host of honor who always helps us out, my man, Matty Ice. How you doing, Matty?
Man, I'm doing awesome, man. Glad to be here as usual.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And once again, I got my best friend from childhood who's been, we've been 10 toes deep since day one. My man, Vance Robs, a.k.a. Coach. How you doing, Coach?
Hey, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing today?
Man, it's another great day. Also, we got here producer Ev holding it down for us. Another episode in the books. He did a great job in the first episode. I'm happy to have him here. How you doing, producer Ev?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Man, living life, brother. Living life. So, fellas, I've been excited. I knew when we got ready to start season 2 that one of the things that we always talk about mental health and how important it is to take care of yourself, that I wanted to get a mental health specialist on the show. And I reached out to my wife, who used to work in that type of background for the Air Force. And she told me, I got a perfect person for you. So she put me in contact with this gentleman. He is a drug and mental health specialist. He is from North Carolina. He also went to the University of the Air Force. He is currently writing a book that we're all going to support called Things We Don't Talk About, which is exactly the things we try to talk about here. So he's going to be a perfect fit. His name is Jamel Grant. What's up, Jamel? How you doing, sir?
What's going on, sir? What's going on, gentlemen? How y'all feeling tonight?
Doing great. Thank you, brother.
Doing well, man. How are you?
Good. Hey, I'm blessed. Can't complain.
I'm glad you're here. I mean, we got plenty of questions for you. So we're going to go ahead and start with our Twitch mental health check-in. That's something that we do every week, and we feel that it is very important to talk about. I know for me and Vance, we just did one 3 days ago, so it's probably not going to be too different. But, we got you here, Matt, to start us off. How would you start us off, Matt? It's been a while since you did your check-in. Tell us how you going. How you feeling?
This week I'm probably at about 8.5, man. Feeling good, man. New month, started the month off right. Been in the gym, got in the gym today, got back to walking, man. Doing some things in the business. So
making me look bad already. I've been in the gym. That's what you're doing? Okay.
Yeah. We was at the gym today, man. Been back out on my walks. Wanted to start the month off right. Getting geared up for the new season, out on the truck. So getting my permits and stuff back together. So I'm gonna say 8.5, man. We went to church on Sunday, so feeling good.
Excellent. That's great stuff. Hey, real quick, go ahead and plug your channel. So I follow you and subscribe to you on your channels, but go ahead and plug them and give a little bit about what you talk about on there.
So my YouTube channel is called Ice Cold Crypto, the Diversified Hustler. So I talk about different investments in the cryptocurrency space. Mainly talk about Bitcoin, but then I talk about some DeFi projects that I'm in, that you can earn passive income in, and just but mostly Bitcoin and DeFi currently. But Matty Ice is my ice cream company. But as far as my YouTube channel, it is Ice Cold Crypto, the Diversified Hustler.
Okay, excellent. I know I've been keeping up with buying Bitcoin, and I think I'm up like $30-$40 right now. So, right now you winning in that little bet you had with us at the beginning of the year. We'll see how that goes. Vance, you want to give an update on if anything changed?
I mean, it's going up with the market right now, but I mean, the market is rising too. So, I ain't convinced yet.
It's
Man,
it's been a little decoupled from the market. The market actually, stock market's been down over the
first quarter.
Exactly.
But
That's what
the
we
stock
talk
market's
about.
been down over the first quarter, but
Bitcoin's been the best performing asset this year. But
by a
we
couple,
got to play it
couple
out.
dollars, I give you credit on that, Matty Ice. You know what I'm saying? But depending on where you got your money invested in the market, you know what I mean? We'll see. You know what I'm saying?
I want to just get your update on your mental health, brother. Not.
Oh, I thought you were going to update on what, man? I mean,
money impacts mental health too, though.
My mental health is Matty's Ice crypto. You know what I'm saying? It got me invested there every week. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing that's changed over the last week. Our Bitcoin exchange. You know what I mean? But nah, real talk is it's the same as what it was the other day at 7. I still got work. You know what I'm saying? Kind of tugging away at me right now. So nothing major from Sunday. I mean, we 3 days away. Spring break is happening, so all the kids are home. So makes work a little bit tougher than what it should be. But you know what I'm saying? I'm holding it down right now, trying to get to the weekend. So
okay. Everett, you want to give an update? You got any changes?
Nothing new. I'm exactly the same.
All right. Even WrestleMania didn't hype it up a little bit?
Nah, because we can't talk about that right now, because if we do, okay, I'll be 30 minutes. I have a lot to say. So
all right, well, maybe we'll save that for a different show then. All right. We'll go ahead and go. All right. Well, I'm about an 8.2. I'm happy I got through the food show that we do every year for my company, and made it through that. Had a lot of positive things happen for that. So I'm excited about that because it means more money in my pocket. So, so I'm a little bit high. I was at an 8, now I'm about an 8.2, a little bit higher. So, Jamel, so it's up to you now. So got to give a rating between 0 and 10. How you feel? So tell us how your week has been. And, anything good, anything bad that you want to talk about for your week personally before we get into your interview?
Okay. I will give myself a solid 8. It's been a pretty good week. My kids are on spring break too. They're down at their aunt's house down in North Carolina. So me and the wife got the house to ourselves when I come up from work. Work's been a little busy. I'm getting ready to transition out, make a big change. I'm retiring after 20 years in the military. So, it's easy to get in there, but when you get out, they got a whole lot of stuff to do. So that's got to keep me occupied, but it's for a good thing. And I'm ready to move into the direction that I want to move. So that's giving me a lot of energy and it's making me real hopeful for the future. So I'm doing pretty good.
Well, we definitely want to thank you for your service here, Dad Mentality. I mean, 20 years doing anything is tough, especially I know being in our armed forces, and that definitely, you get my respect for that. And here at Dad Mentality, so let's. I just want to get into the interview real quick. So, first thing I want to start is, what made you join the armed forces?
Funny story. So my sister went to University of North Carolina in Charlotte, and had a little bit of problem. The adjustment to college can be a little rough. My parents essentially financed her first semester, and we'll just say it wasn't like the best investment. So my parents was kind of pushing me to join the military, so to pay for school. And I have family in the military as well. So I was looking at, different options and stuff. And one day, I think I was a junior, my dad talked with me and was basically telling me that, you got to get your education. It's important. But I suggest you join and pay for it. And he took me to an Air Force recruiter, and the rest is history.
Okay. So did that work out for you when you went into the Air Force? Did they pay for it, or how did that process go?
Yeah, they paid for everything so far. So I have an associate that the Air Force paid for, and you get tuition assistance to pay for your bachelor's and stuff. But they also have paid for certification. So my counseling certification, they paid for. I didn't pay for that. And I got a few other certifications like certified hostage negotiator. They paid for that.
Wow.
a couple of different treatment modalities that normally cost like a couple $100 to pay for. They paid for those for me. So those resume builders, they paid for it. So I'm pretty thankful and grateful. But I have been doing mental health the whole 20 years. I did security for the first 6.5 years.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question was how did you make that transition? Was that something that when did you decide that mental health was where you wanted to go?
2008. I was racked for the second time, and I was looking at other options. I was going to actually separate and get out. Look, my first job was security, and during the height of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, security forces was hot. Like I said, by that point in time, that was my third deployment, my second time in Iraq, and I knew that if I wanted to have a family, I was pretty newly married to my wife. I think we'd been married for like 2.5 years at that point. We didn't have any kids, so I knew that if I have a family and have some stability and stuff like that, then I would probably do another job. And then mental health kind of runs in my family. I have people in my family who suffer from mental illness. So I've had an interest in it. That was what my original bachelor's degree program was in before I switched my major. And kind of found myself as like the pseudo counselor on my squad. Like everybody would come to me with their problems. I was like, let me get this mental health thing a try. And it worked out. So I was able to cross train into mental health services from security forces. I cross trained in 2009, and I've been doing it ever since. And I just fell in love with the field. The more I did it, the more I fell in love. And I did a lot of things. I got a lot of opportunities. I got to work in a military prison. I got to serve in deployed locations, helping the troops downrange. I got to work with some of the people who work with the Afghan refugees when Afghanistan collapsed in 2021. So I've got to do a cool thing. I became a certified hostage negotiator. So a lot of cool things with that. It's opened up a lot of doors for me.
Okay. Did anybody else have a question they want to jump in with, or?
No, you keep that certified hostage negotiator. That sounded. It was like, wow, okay. Okay.
Have you ever had to use that training?
Real world, no. Well, kind of. It wasn't a hostage situation. I mean, I guess the closest hostage was me. I guess I was a hostage, but there was a time when I was when I worked in the prison. There was a prisoner who was really upset about a situation that had happened, and they called, mental health to go and, talk to him, assess him, see what was going on. It got a little testy. My man was real angry, but, got to use some of my diffusion skills, and I was able to establish a rapport, and, we worked it out, and, he was good, got him where he needed to be. He didn't kill me, so we good,
Yeah, well, I guess you would call that successful. You're still here to talk about it, right?
Yeah. Nah, most of that was like a one-off too. Most of the time, man, I felt safer there sometimes than I do outside.
Yeah. You felt safer in the prison?
Yeah. That says a lot, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
With your experience, like, okay, so you've done things in the Air Force. Is PTSD like the biggest reason that people maybe have depression or need to come and talk to you? What's the biggest reason? The typical or most common, I guess.
Yeah, I would say PTSD, trauma related disorders are probably, I'd say they're in the top 5, maybe number 5. Most common thing is, second behind that is depression. I would say third behind that is some kind of addiction. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because the people who have the mental health issues will use a substance to cope. We call that maladaptive coping. And then, substances are chemicals, and they alter your brain chemistry so they can cause addiction. So that's probably the third thing. And then honestly, I would say the fourth thing, and this is probably interrelated to a lot of different things, is you would just be surprised how many people are lonely. Like how many people have issues that stem from just being alone and not having a good social support system.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, that's
I can see that.
Yeah. And
So being by yourself is a difficult thing.
yeah, well, I mean, when you think about
depending on who you are. Right.
yeah, when you think about it as human beings, even the most introversion has somebody. Like they want some form of human contact. They want it on their terms, but they still want some form of human contact because that's how we were created. That's how we're designed. If you look at our brain chemistry and look at how we have, developed from a anthropologic standpoint, we are social creatures. We are innate social creatures. A person's mental health is better when they have some social support and connect with. I mean, look at babies. Babies literally die if they don't have that good connection, like that first connection, the most important connection with the parent, with the mother. And there's a lot of science behind the loneliness and failure to connect that has created things that people deal with later on in life. So there's a huge component of mental health care that goes into connectedness.
Well, one of the things we talked about last week on our show was death and how Black men, as Black men or just men in general, not just to say our race or just us in general, we don't talk about death, and we don't seem to really even have an answer. I know I don't. So my weakness around death is that both of my parents died when I was young. Well, my dad died when I was 11 years old, and my mom passed away in, I think, 2007. But they both died suddenly. And for me, my issue always been around death is I don't deal well with it. I don't attend funerals. I don't even like talking about it. Even doing last week's show, it was tough for me to discuss it. Is like death of family members like a big thing in what you do, a situation or something what would you say to a person who, is like me, who doesn't deal well with death or doesn't have a good, I guess, a good hold on it? What would be your discussion?
Well, I would, if I were your counselor or therapist, I would ask you, why is that? Like, I would encourage you to explore what is it about the concept of death that is so off-putting for you. My guess would be the finality of it. Like, death is done. And with most people who have that aversion to death, I mean, first of all, most people have an aversion to death because the majority of people don't want to die. But it's painful, and it evokes feelings of loss, feelings of loneliness, feelings of things being outside of our control, and it can be really uncomfortable. So I would encourage you or encourage anyone to, take that introspective look and figure out what is it about death that bothers me so. Because when you have that answer, then you can begin to kind of work through it. That's the basis of most mental health therapies, is getting to that root why. And even if you can't figure out the why, just beginning to process it with yourself, whether it's a sense of danger that comes from death or grieving. And a little bit more to talk about men. I think men have been socialized by society to not deal with death in an emotional way. One of the worst things you can say to a dude is, hey, man, stop being a punk, man up. Like, I get it, somebody died, stop crying. Crying ain't gonna bring him back. But we got to have that outward expression of our emotions. But socially, it's not really acceptable. Things are changing, but I still think that stigma is still there. I think it's especially stigmatizing to Black men because very few races of men are scrutinized the way we are when we emote, because we're viewed as dangerous or unstable. So again, we pick up on these things. We're social creatures, so we really pick up on behaviors and what behaviors are acceptable and not acceptable. But that's the topic for my book, things we don't talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to battle with that with my children because with my oldest son, I was very much, I was young and I was very much like, don't cry, suck it up. You're not allowed to, don't do that. What you crying for? They ain't going to do nothing. And now as I got older, I've learned to allow him to express himself, however he wants to express it. And I give him the time to finish whatever he needs to do. And then we talk about it, and I think that a lot of that comes with maturity too. Cause I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure we've all raised sons in this group, and we've been sons. So
I got 2 boys. I got a teenager.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what would be I got a better question. So my question is, do you personally have any exercises that you believe in or perform to help people with mental health?
Oh, absolutely. One of the first things that I preach and one of the things that I just firmly believe in is the concept of mindfulness. Is older than all of us, is older than America. It's something that's been practiced for literally hundreds of years. It has a lot of health benefits to lowering blood pressure and cholesterol to just improving your general mood. What it essentially is teaching you how to be aware of both yourself and your surroundings, being free of judgment. And it creates a skill in people to be able to recognize my own emotions, to recognize when I'm getting upset, when I'm getting frustrated, and even recognize that in other people. But a component of mindfulness that I really stick with, that I actually practice on a daily basis, is gratitude. Gotta have gratitude, because you have to look at the world from the standpoint of there are a lot of things that are in this world that are depressing. There are a lot of bad things that happen every day. And we live in a society that's going to tell us every day, every bad thing that happened. That's what drives media. But we don't always take the time to practice that gratitude. I'm a man of faith, so I do believe in thanking my higher power. But you don't even have to be a person of faith or believe in a higher power to just practice gratitude. Just gratitude for what you got. Like, I'm sitting in this house right now, and I didn't come from a rough place, but I didn't have this, and I'm grateful. I'm thankful for it, and it helps to keep me grounded. Along with the idea of mindfulness, being able to understand my own emotions and know where I am, it gives me a greater sense of control. And it actually helps me realize that I don't have control. Once you kind of like an old proverb, and I'm like butchering it, but essentially the control that you get is when you realize that you really don't have control.
Yeah.
And practicing mindfulness is, when I get stressed out or I get anxious about something that is going on at work, well, what control do I have over that? The only thing I can control is me. I can control how I respond to it. I can control how I prepare for it. I can control over the environment. But that's it. I can't control other people. I can't control, what happens tomorrow. I can't control that. And when you let go of that, it gives you a sense of peace.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I tell my kids that all the time. You only can control yourself. And going back to the mindfulness, it is like once you are aware that you have choices, you have a choice on how you maybe either respond to something or you have a choice to react to it. And a lot of times people are reacting to it, and it's usually it's an uncontrollable emotional response. So you get angry about it because it's something that's like a trigger, that causes you to feel a certain type of way. But once you, like you said, you can be aware of it and know that, okay, I'm being triggered by this. Why am I feeling this way about that subject, like you said? And I kind of started learning that and using that tool several years ago when I started learning about the mind and how the mind works, and the power of positive thinking and, get to reading books and stuff.
If you don't know your triggers, your wife is the main one that's going to be a close person, going to push them triggers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what it is.
Yeah. And you said something, Matty, about you said something that's key, and that's control. Like I try to explain people, most people feel anxiety for things that they can't control. But the one thing you can control is you. That is the one thing that you have absolute control over. Well, generally a healthy person does. You have absolute control over yourself and how you respond. And by responding rather than reacting, you give yourself options, right? Like you guys probably heard the term learned helplessness. You're not falling into that trap because you're not reacting to that anger. You're not having that angry outburst. And when you calm down, you're like, dude, I don't know who that dude was. I don't know where that came from. You're not having that. You're having that, that real measured response. It's okay to have a reaction, an emotional reaction to things, because we're human. That's what we do. That's how we were created, to have emotional reactions. But when you have control over it, you're able to express it in a healthy way. And the most important thing is you ain't hurting the people that care about you the most, the people that are in your corner. Because when we don't have control, it's the people that we love the most that we tend to hurt. Not physically, although that happens too.
Right.
Okay, no, I agree with you on that. I just to tell a little story about me, myself, and I have a cousin that I talked to who's recently just now getting married, and him and his fiance, they argue and they fight, and he came to me and he was like, how did you do that? How did you go 20 years or this, that, and that? I said, well, I'm gonna tell you the one thing that I learned that I wish I could have talked to myself a long time ago about. And that was that I no longer get mad enough that my wife has control. So, because I feel like if you get up and you punch the wall or break a TV or you do something like that, you're doing something where you, in my opinion, you're giving somebody else that control. Like, what can that person say to you that's going to make you go and do this? It should be nothing, because you have the control. Like, you should never give anybody, even my wife, that kind of control where she's going to make me endanger myself or endanger somebody else. Like but once you realize that you have that control, that it's not, you're like, oh, she made me do it. No, she didn't. You did it. You decided to do it.
Yeah.
She didn't make you do a damn thing. You know what I'm saying? You decided to do it, but you gave her that much control. And I'm not even saying just wives or whatever. It's anybody out there. If you're out there and you just allowing your job that much control over you to make you endanger yourself or endanger somebody else, that you can't still blame the job. That's your decision. You decided to do that, and you decided to give someone or something control.
I think that also goes back to what Jamel was saying also about just how not just Black men, but that's what we're talking about. That's what all of us are here. That's how we've been conditioned. Like, when certain things happen, like, I ain't letting nobody talk to me like that. You know what I mean? So you gotta respond a certain type of way. Like, and that was how we was conditioned as we grew up. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but society did
it's
that.
Like,
so
yeah, well, that's what I mean. Society has been conditioned, and especially like I would say definitely in other communities. I've seen they don't grow up the same way. I guess in maybe the environment that certain people grow up, we don't know how to handle conflict or disputes, or just anything like that without getting upset. You know what I mean? And arguing and different things like that, and getting out of our comfort zone, because we all have done it. But after, like you said, after you do it, you don't feel any better. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, you don't. You kind of feel worse. Especially as I've gotten older, when I do have that moment where I get out of character, I'm like, yeah, you kind of, I feel worse. Like, how I let them get me there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, mad at yourself, right? Like, dang,
yeah.
Why did I go there? Yeah.
But since society does play a big role in this. So, because I mean, if you think about it, our parents weren't having these conversations amongst each other. One, two, there were certain things that are the generation before us they went through that forced this condition upon, you know what I'm saying, the minority communities. So because, you know what I'm saying, your outrage or your reaction and, you know what I'm saying, your lack of resources, we didn't have therapists to go to talk to. And our parents didn't have the time.
Yeah, therapist was church.
Correct. Therapist was away. Church. That's exactly what it was, right? And the thing about it, I mean, that some people still got mixed emotions about church. You know what I mean? So, and turning to the Bible, which is I'm not one of them, but you know what I'm saying? It's just that our society conditioned us to kind of hold all of these mental emotions in, and like even if we dealt with just something as simple as ADHD when we were younger kids, we were not diagnosed with that.
No,
we were not diagnosed with depression.
Yeah,
right. We were told get on an IDP or he needs to fail the grade and do the grade again. Right. So the society is what's changing and allowing us to have these type of discussions. It's just we got to communicate to our children and the people behind us, like most of you guys are doing, that hey, this is a real illness. These are real illness. Depression is real. Anxiety is real, and this is how you deal with it. And I think we're still probably a generation or two away from like fully releasing ourselves of what we've been through with it.
Yeah, I think there's a correlation to income and mental health access. Like, I think that plays a lot into it. And you know, our parents' generations. Like, I'll be 38 this year, so I'm an old millennial is what I am. But my parents were boomers, and so you know they did the best they could. They did what was taught to them. You know, a lot of our parents, they did the best that they could. But I think a couple factors happened. Like, one, the struggles were different. So the struggles that they went through were different than the struggles that we went through as young adults. I remember my pops, you know, would tell me, I remember him being so mad. He got off the phone one time. You know, somebody had called him the N-word, like at work. You know, and that's what they had to deal with. And you know, from my pop's perspective, he had a family. You know, he had a wife and 2 kids, and you know, he had a good job with good benefits, and that was how we had health care, and you know, had good insurance plan. So, you know, from his perspective, he had to deal with that. And because of the things that they went through for us, you know, that gives us options. So, you know, one of the things that I think to kind of think about is, you know, because of this struggle and sacrifice, you know, we got options. We could say, nah, bro, I'm out. I ain't putting up with that.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Definitely agreed.
So my next question is, so for me, the word mental health is something new to me. Is something that I definitely feel like we as a, you know, Black culture or generation have really started even exploring that word, or like exploring the things like, you know, I deal bipolar, or you know, any of those terms where you're dealing with people who are mentally ill. What is there anything that you see that's usually like a trigger or something that you notice in a person that would let you know that maybe this person is mentally ill opposed to just having a bad day?
There are some things that like stand out. Of course, anything that is related to what you call psychosis or a psychotic disorder. So that's your schizophrenia and stuff like that. Seeing things that aren't there, hearing voices, you know, that tends to be obvious. You see people doing like this, or somebody talking to somebody that ain't there. Yeah, that's kind of obvious. But you know, for the more common stuff, the anxiety, the mood disorder, Body language is real big. You ever see somebody when they're sitting down, they shake their leg real fast and move it up and down? Ain't nothing going on. That's just what they do. You call that in our field, that's called psychomotor agitation. That could be a symptom of anxiety. How people interact with others is real big. Like, how are they in their peer groups? How are they with their spousal partners? How do they interact with their children? How do they interact, with their families and things like that? That's a big one. Like, people's social interactions are really, really huge. Like how the problems people have. So I know a telltale sign. You ever meet somebody where everything is wrong in their life? Everybody mistreats them every day of the week. Something's always bad. Somebody always did something to them. That's a sign. That's a sign. Like, okay, what's the common denominator in all of these situations?
Yeah. I've had that conversation with a person before.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but eventually you gotta look at yourself, brother. You gotta always look at yourself. I've been to, I am proud to say that I have been to therapy. I've been to a therapist, and
yep. Oh yeah, I'm in therapy now. I got therapists now. You have to.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, we always had that stigma, though, as a Black culture to not be able to say that. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that you need therapy or you need, like I said, to me, mental health when I was a child or young, that wasn't even a word. Like, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
And now that we can, it is a good thing to be out there and be free and say, I need to talk to someone. I need to. I need somebody who can help me make it through this troubling time, no matter what it is. And you as a therapist, you go to therapy.
Mm-hmm. Most therapists do.
Yeah.
Because one, you have a bias. We all have a bias. If you try to quote mental health yourself, it ain't gonna work. You need that trained person who can give you that unbiased approach and flat out tell you the truth. And that's one of the reasons why, like one of the big boundaries in our field is, you don't see family members or acquaintances as patients, because your relationship with them could be biased. It could lead you to have a bias or a blind spot to something. Because ain't nothing like somebody, you confide in, you're telling them about, what's going on, and you're processing these things, and they give you that perspective that you just can't get on your own. They give you that perspective. Something that me and my therapist had worked on before, we had talked about is I was talking about something, and I was talking about, like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and the demands. And he was like, "Hey, it doesn't sound like you give yourself grace." And that just hit me like, yeah, I don't. I have all these crazy expectations for myself to be everything for everybody. Like, I'm in a leadership position at my job. So my team is over 60 people. So I'm like trying to be everything for them. And then I come home, I got a family I got to be there for. And so that expectation management of myself wasn't there. He's like, you got to give yourself some grace, partner. It's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I do. Because I'm only human. But that was that unbiased look that I needed to hear it.
Yeah, man, therapy is definitely it's something that I suggest everybody, whether you're in a great mood or not great mood, to take advantage of. I mean, you will find out a lot of baggage that you never knew you were holding on to. Like when I started therapy a while back, I had a lot of baggage from my mom and her expectations and me letting her down and it creating disappointment. And what I ended up finding out is that carried over into my marriage. It carried over into work. It carried over into everything. And one of the root causes is especially in my marriage, it was, hey, a female figure that I love, if I disappoint that person, I was harder on myself than the person actually was on me for disappointing them. And what it did is it triggered other things for me, either not to be honest or whatever, just so that I wouldn't hit the disappointment phase.
Yeah, you avoided that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and it triggered other things. So, like me realizing that and addressing that, and even letting my wife know that, has really changed a lot of communication. Because it's like, now, if you're going to be disappointed, you're just going to be disappointed. Right. But I'm not going to hold on to it. And I'm not going to allow it to control me, back to the control, to do other things that would impact the relationship. So,
yeah, that's what's up, man. Look, I'm so glad that you are being open and being vulnerable and being strong enough to be vulnerable to share this, man, because people need to hear this. People need to hear that it's okay to get help. Like, this whole conversation, like this, one of the reasons why I was really excited to do this is because this is something that we really need in our community. And you'd be surprised how many Black men who I've worked with in my career who have something similar, who deal with a similar struggle about disappointment, and it's tied to basically their child disappointing their mom.
Yeah. And one thing I did learn when I was in therapy, and I don't know if this is like a general rule or how general this is, maybe you can answer that question, but it usually always stems back to childhood. Like, there's some trauma. If there's some type of trauma in your childhood, it will always keep on reoccurring in your life until you realize it. I remember the day that I was sitting with my counselor, and he goes, and I'm telling him all this stuff, and he goes, "You do realize that you have abandonment issues." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Look, man." He was like, "Look, brother, your dad left you at 11. You saw him that morning, and 2 hours later, they were telling you he was dead. And, and you said to yourself that you still thought he was coming back. I thought he was coming back till I was 18 years old." And I remember my dad was a huge football fan. That's one of the reasons why I started playing football. Because I knew if I played football, I'm in this game, I'm doing good, my dad's he's gonna show up. He's gonna come. And I remember my senior year, I was walking, they had a parent day where, it was your last game of the season, your parent walks you out on the field. And I didn't have anybody to walk me out. And I remember that day, that was the day I realized that my dad was never coming back. And that always affected me, and the same thing affects me now in my marriage. But now, once the day I realized it, it was so freeing. It was so freeing because I realized that all this shit I'm holding against my wife has nothing to do with her. Because that was my thing. Like, anytime my wife would leave, I'm not even talking about like not leaving me for good, like leaving me to go visit family in Florida or California. Every time I knew she wasn't coming back that day or something like that, I get triggered. And I would drink heavily and do anything to make myself pass out or go to sleep or whatever eventually, because I would be panicked inside. And then, I would lash out at her, and
that was that 11-year-old. That was that 11-year-old in you that was terrified of essentially being alone. Let me ask you a question. Why did you name this dad mentality?
Wow. Okay. So I have a friend who has a kind of like a chat thing it was just called Mentality, with men capitalized in it.
Yeah.
And he talks very positively on that. And I was like, I want to the idea of the chat was that we would have 100 fathers on there, and on our birthdays, we would all send each other $5. So you would get $500 on your birthday. but then you had to send 500 other times. But you know, it was a good thought at first. And
Matty Ice, what that sound like, Matty? It sound like a pyramid scheme.
It wasn't a pyramid scheme. It wasn't a pyramid scheme. But
I wasn't gonna let you out
all
on that one. Yeah,
it was a good thought. It didn't work, but it was a very positive chat. You know what I'm saying? So that's where the mentality part came in. Then the dad part was so I play video games with a group of men who we are very dedicated for grown ass men to be on video games, but we play every day and we play from a specific time. And when we're on that video game, we're talking to each other about things that men and dads don't talk about. We talk about our kids. We talk about our relationship. Like I had to talk Albans is one of the guys that I play with, who's one of the hosts, couldn't make it here today. We talk about he was going through a divorce, and we helped each other through all that stuff. Like we helped and we're all very positive. Don't get me wrong, we fry each other in the middle of it when we have time, but it's still all positive people who are trying to help. And I've been blessed with a lot of positive people like Matty Ice, like Vance. Like I've been blessed with a ton of mature, faithful, God-fearing men, fathers, dads that, I could pick 3 other people that can be on the show tomorrow that, or whatever, just out of my group. And all these guys, we all have groups that are the same. Like Matt has groups, Vance has groups, his groups who are the same, that we don't sit here and we don't talk about going out here and banging chicks and doing this and doing that. No, we talk about how to uplift our kids, how to make things, how to do things better that even our parents didn't do, and how to encourage each other to stay through it when things aren't right, and that's where I came up with that's where the dad mentality came up. The podcast came up. We would talk on a game for hours, and we would be like, "Yo, we should be recording this." And finally, we just got on here, and I was like, and then there was another thing. I have another guy, the Enlightened Ones podcast. He's a friend of mine who started that podcast, which is a very positive podcast. They do a lot of sports, but there's still the positivity and the things they talk about on there is amazing too. So I wanted to do the same thing. They're a little bit younger. They're actually in their mid 30s, but and we're a little bit older. We're in our mid 40s or a little bit younger, whatever. But that's the whole thing, and I enjoyed it, and I've been enjoying it ever since, and I'm happy that I did it because it's really a great outlet. So, and I encourage anyone who wants to do it. I will help you. I will participate. I will do whatever you want to do. If somebody else wants to start their own podcast, I would love to be a part of it. And even you, sir, you might want to start yours. I mean, you already got the things we don't talk about going on. So.
Yeah, and
books and all types of stuff. Yeah,
the future's bright. Future's bright.
Hey man, I would love to be on it. When you do write that book, I definitely want to have you back on so we can discuss it. Because I feel like that book is going to be probably a lot of the things that we have talked about, and we can go over again. So now, I'm going
to piggyback on what you were saying. Just when I heard the name Dad's Mentality, I love the name because I saw it as us as fathers. Just like Vance was saying, like we gotta break that cycle. You know what I mean? How we grew up, showing our kids it's okay to talk about their feelings. You know what I mean? Because I have a son and a daughter, but my son is my oldest. And again, like when he was young, I had him at a young age. I was 18, so I didn't know how at that time how to talk to him. Just being so rough on him about different things with school. But then as I got older, it just changed. Now, what I'm saying, we tell each other that we love each other every day. You know what I mean? He asked me, we ask every morning, how you feeling this morning, Dad? How was your day? You know what I mean? So we just break that cycle. And that's why I've so as dads, we teach ours that's coming up how to break it so that they have a better mental health than we did. So that was kind of how when I heard, I'm like, yeah, definitely. So when you had told me that you were starting the podcast, I was like, hey, if you need anything, man, I definitely help out, love to hop on. And so here I am.
Yeah. I think it's evident, like the mental health counselor in me is seeing this as, this is your therapy. This is all of our therapies. Like this, us doing this, having these conversations, therapy. That's why it's called dad mentality, because fatherhood is an important part to all of our lives. And you already mentioned, the role of being fatherless at the age of 11 impacted you. So clearly, that's something that's real important. So this is absolutely like a form of therapy for us to have these conversations. And it goes back to the point I made earlier about, we're social creatures. We as human beings, we got to talk and have relationships with other people just to talk and, just to BS with and jive with each other, but also just to process life with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I wish I had known that, at a younger age, because I would have did so much more. I would have did so much more, even for myself and my family. And because believe it or not, I am an introvert. I'm not a big go out and talk to people fan, but I, because I play video games on a video game, I'm a crazy man. You know what I'm saying? I can say whatever I want to say, do whatever I want to do. It don't matter, and then even for this podcast, that's the same way. This is my release, because when I go to work, I don't talk to nobody. I don't care. I get in there and I want to get the hell out as soon as I can. You know what I'm saying? And I don't have no conversations with people. I got one person out of my the whole journey that I even acknowledge his presence. So, other than that, but my job is I have to sell anyway. So I go, when I go in there and talk to my chefs and the people in there, I have to be this person. But other than that, man, I'm not that person. I don't like talking to none of y'all, I just want to take care of my kids and move on and do what I got to do. But it's been therapy to definitely help me open up and actually talk to people. Like I was definitely that dude. If I saw somebody disgruntled, I just walked right past them. I didn't care. I wasn't going to sit there and have a conversation with them. But now I've become and kind of broken that I do talk to people now. I do talk to them. If I see that somebody, especially, a young man or whatever case may be, if I see that there's something going on there that, he looks like he needs to talk, I'll listen, But as soon as it starts going to something dumb, then I'll just walk away after that. But it's a good thing. Now I want to go back to your book. So things we don't talk about, and I know, you want to write the book and I don't want you to give the whole book away, but if you could just give me one thing that we don't talk about that you're going to highlight in your book and why you feel that is important to you, I'd appreciate it.
So I got a passion for mental health, obviously, and then mental health in the Black community. One of the things that, I was observing my time on this earth being above the ground, Black men and Black women have we have a unique relationship with each other when we compare us to other races. And so I was really curious as to why. And it always kind of struck me, like even with my wife, there are certain ways that I feel sometimes that, I have to kind of check myself on, like, why am I feeling this way based off this interaction? And I think that it stems from a lot of different things, but I'm really big in the belief that we as social creatures become socialized through society. And that society started from the time our ancestors came, the American ancestors came from those slave ships onto this land. And I really think that a lot of the intricacies of our relationship between Black men and Black women can be traced back to the ways we had to adapt to survive slavery. And then as each generation migrated to adapt to essentially the social oppression that Black people experienced in the history of this country, it adapted with it. And so the chapter I'm working on now is probably going to be the longest chapter is, we don't talk about our relationship with women. And I want to do a deep dive into are Black men's relationship with Black women, and why Black women. So just as an example, me and my wife talk about this all the time. Black women are like one of the only races of women that are essentially taught be successful so you don't need a man.
Well,
you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're taught that by society, you know what I mean? And then in the church, not all churches are teaching what submission truly is, right? So they get the perspective of I need to live without a man and I don't need to submit to a man, right? When in actuality, you know what I'm saying, when the Bible's talking about submission, he's talking about submitting to a God-fearing man that is a leader leading her God's way. So it's a lot of things. I agree with you wholeheartedly that our society, the churches, and everything is impacting our actual relationship with our own race and with our own women.
Yeah. And, to flip that on his head with us too, we ain't doing what we supposed to do.
Agreed.
As men. And I think, whether you subscribe to the biblical principles or not, there's just something to the dynamic between Black men and Black women that is just different. It's just different. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about that, you're doing a deep dive into that.
Well, that's going to be interesting.
But it's also like society created it, help with it. But again, now it's being passed down. You know what I'm saying? From inside the families now. So they don't even have to do it anymore. You know what I mean?
But, yeah. Well, I would even say the role of marriage is different. So the marriage that my grandmother had is different than the marriage that my parents had. My marriage is different than the marriage that my parents have. Like, I think that we have to look at how each generation, the relationship between us changes. The example I always give is, not to get too much to my family history and everything, but, my grandmother wasn't treated the best by my granddaddy. And I could see how the lesson would be, hey, get your education, be successful, so you don't have to live like I live. But we have to look at what has happened over that and why that was the message there. Not everyone was taught that message, but a lot of women are. And that's just one factor. Like, why is it that although it's attributed more to Black men when statistically is really about the same across all races, but Black men tend to be more sexualized. And so when you look at infidelity and you look at men, cheating and stuff, and you look at what society has told us, that definitely goes back to slavery. I
was about to say, it goes like so far back though.
Yeah.
Black families have been torn apart since back then. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I ain't gonna say it's almost been ingrained in us in some type of way. When something is repeated over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And then it's deep rooted.
Yeah. And it's socialized. Like, I remember I didn't think like this at the time, but every now and then I'll listen to the music. Like I was a teenager in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I'll listen to the music that I listened to then. I'd be like, I used to listen to that. A lot of it I want positive music. And a lot of it talked about treating women a certain way. And it glorified, essentially, music that today does the same thing. But, it glorifies the man who is sexually promiscuous. But that's what
and it glorifies the woman being a hoe.
Yeah. So. That's what gets pushed out. That's what these record producers push out. That's what the market executives for music are pushing out.
It's flipped on his head now. So now look, it's like completely the other way around now. If you look at the female rappers who are at the top of the game, they act like the men. You know what I mean? And talking that same way. It's like they do that in their songs. But like I don't know if y'all remember, Sierra got drugged a few weeks ago because she released a song.
I don't remember what it was called. It was something about women.
Yeah.
She ain't no independent woman. She got this dude who is doing his thing, taking care of his family and her.
I agree, but that's not what they see, and that's not what the young girls are hearing, though. So
correct.
They may be doing that on the back end, but what they're putting out there to them is perpetuating it. You know what I mean? It's exactly. Like you said.
So since we on the topic of this, I got a discussion for y'all there. How do you raise your daughters?
Well, I
have a daughter. I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
So how do you raise your daughters?
Well, the biggest issue I have, first of all, I 100% believe in dating my daughter. I date my daughter.
Agreed.
All date nights. I take her out. I show her how a man should be treated. I also teach her how she should be respectful. Just because a guy takes you out to a nice restaurant don't mean you order the most expensive thing on the menu. And I've also told her, I was like, look, you don't order anything you're not going to be willing to pay for. So don't go in there and order, a tomahawk steak just because you can, or just because that dude to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? If you're not going to pay, you don't know, that dude might walk out on you. But anyway, it's respectful to. It's just be respectful, because if you're just going out and you're just ordering crap just to order crap, that's going to change the thought process of that man towards you. He's going to look at you as, you're just looking for a free meal, or you're gold digging, or every time you go, blah, blah, blah. Or what you order, he's going to have expectations afterwards. So, if you sit there and you order a tomahawk steak, then he's going to be expecting something afterwards, and so, but I 100% believe in dating my daughter. The biggest issue I have right now, since we now pivoted to daughters and just our children in general, is the reverse of being sexually open. It is almost taboo to say, I'm straight now. You have to be open to say, oh, I'm interested. The big word now is I'm pansexual. I'll love anybody, no matter who it is, or this, that, and the other. The person that says they're straight is looked at as being, not open, or not part of the cool crew, or whatever the case may be, because there's so much out there right now that, he, she, whatever those terms are. So that to me has been my biggest concern, as far as when I talk to my daughter, I talk to her about it. I'm like, it's okay. If you like boys, say you like boys, you know what I'm saying? But if you like girls, that's fine too. But I mean, don't be afraid of it. Like, you gotta be secure in who you are. You can't just fall for anything just because your friends tell you, oh, you need to be open. You don't need to be. You can be whatever you want to be. Just right. Like they can be whatever they want to be. You know what I'm saying? Well, you don't care. I mean, ultimately, why should they care if you say you're, whatever you are? I mean, it's okay, but they're looked at down. I feel like
that's just another agenda that's being pushed, though.
That's why I asked the question. Because it's kind of like, how do you address it? I mean, we're talking about Black women. They start as Black daughters, right? So how, as fathers, do we raise our daughters? And I definitely think that Rodney hit on some key points as far as dating. I also believe that daughters are more observant than boys, and they observe how our interaction with our wives are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah,
a lot more than what boys do.
Yeah, well, girls develop faster. Their brains develop faster than boys. In fact, there's a book by Matt Reeves of Boys and Men. One of the points that he makes is, if you look at the education statistics, boys are kind of falling behind, like way behind. There's an achievement gap that's way different. And what he talks about, I respect it because he doesn't do it in a way that denigrates women, because it's not women's fault. He talks about being structures that are created that benefit the development of women more so than of men. But that's kind of a conversation for another time. I think that, I hear the agenda thing a lot. I think you got to put things in perspective. If you look at census information and what people are willing to say. You know, the LGBTQ community is nowhere near as represented as it is portrayed in media.
Agreed.
Nowhere near. And so, you know, my son went through something like this when it was a few years ago. He was in middle school. Other kids were talking about it and stuff like that. And I just asked him, I said, do you even care about that right now? Why do you care about that right now?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't know. Other people are talking about it. And I was like, well, like you said, do you, man? And I, you know, I told him, I was like, I'm your dad. I know you. Like I watched you come out the womb. I've changed diapers. You pooped on me. You peed on me, dude. Like I know you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the answers to some of the questions that you don't know yet. But you got to figure those out for yourself. Figure them out for yourself. But here's the thing: live your life.
Yeah,
live your life, and don't live it to other people's standards. Live it to your own. Live it to your own standards. Like I raised you to be respectful, and I raised you to follow rules. So don't do them while you live in my house.
Right.
But as far as the crowd goes, you know what's right and wrong. It's instilled in you. Deep down, you know.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I think, you know what I'm saying, for our daughters and as they come up, it's just being model dads and model fathers and model husbands so that they can see, you know what I'm saying, throughout their life cycle, back to what Jamel said, they can see how our marriages look. And that helped with the transformation as it goes forward in the generation. So we are critical in this phase, especially with the way marriages are right now and the way mental health is portrayed right now, and definitely improving our children's lives as they move forward. And fortunately enough, we are in a position to have the resources to get them help when help is needed.
Yeah, but I definitely agree. We got to lead by example because, like how you say, how we raised my daughter. Like I'm fortunate enough, you know, that me and my daughter have a awesome relationship, and she has an awesome relationship with her mom. So, she sees how I treat my wife with respect. You know, do anything for her. You know what I mean? So that's what she's going to, you know, expect. You know what I mean? That's going to be her expectation. She's not going to take anything less than that. You know, she's, my daughter's 20, so she's, you know what I'm saying, she's had boyfriends and, you know, met a couple of them, but she's kind of in her own lane doing her thing now. She's in school. She's just focused on her. She's interning at a school right now, and, you know, she's just focusing on her. But she knows what she wants, and she knows her worth. So we just gotta, you know, teach them. You know, of course, she's still young. She wants to have fun. She listens to all of the music, but she can separate it though. You know what I mean? She separates that. She knows where she wants to go in her life. So I think it's just, man, like us being dads and just being that, showing them a good foundation or giving them a good foundation. A launching point, and then talking to them, man. Like you said, this mental health and hugging our kids. Like in my household, we didn't used to say "I love you." Like that was like as I grew up, nobody said "I love you," give hugs, but that's a everyday thing, you know. Before you move out the house, love you, see you later, have a great day. You know what I mean? And we made that normal. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, more families should do that, because when that positive energy is flowing through your house, man, it is, man, things are a lot smoother. When there's tension and anxiety around, you know what I mean? It's not a good place. You don't even want to be at home when it's like that.
Think of that as an investment. Like what you just said, you did, showing that kind of affection and telling your children that you love them. Think of that as an investment. You're investing in them. So when they grow up, you know, they might not have, you know, that feeling of low self-esteem that could impact their mental health in a negative way, or low self-worth that could impact their mental health in a negative way. You know, Three important, super important things that children need to hear from both their parents. I love you is one. I'm sorry, so apologizing when we're wrong. And then I'm proud of you. Letting them know that we have a sense of pride in them that they've accomplished something. Those are three super important things that kids need to hear.
Well, I damn sure never heard I'm sorry. I ain't never hear that from my parents, not once, ever.
Right?
And I have like just like it.
I heard from my mom.
We're confessing.
Wasn't saying that.
I had to talk with my son and told him that I apologized about how I used to get so upset sometimes.
I'm talking about from your parents. I'm talking about
nah. But I have told my son I was sorry because I used to get so upset sometimes.
I think I hear it now more now that I'm an adult than I think I did as a child. Maybe I just don't remember as a child. I sure remember getting beat though. Now I did deserve it. I did deserve it. But a funny story about apologizing. We got to be careful with our kids to not be that do as I say, not as I do. My son, when he was my oldest son, when he was younger, he liked to put his little greasy fingers in my plate and get food. And I stopped him. I was like, "Did you ask?" And he would say no. And I was like, "You don't reach your hands on people's plate. You ask, can I have some?" And I said, "I'm your dad. More than likely, I'm gonna share it with you anyway." He was like maybe four or five.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward a little bit later, I'll come home from work. I'm tired. He eating French fries. I love me some potatoes. I put my little greasy hands in his plate, get his fries. He looks up at me with his mama. He get this look from his mama. Looked up at me, looked at his plate. Dad, did you ask?
Whoa.
I couldn't say nothing.
You could have said something, but you was like, okay. Be an example. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I would have said, man, I bought them fries. You just on them. You keep thanking me and asking me because you ain't buy a thing. So that's what I would have said.
Yeah,
that's what your mama would have said, or your daddy would have said to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had to eat it that day. I had a choice to make. It was.
I got it.
I had a choice to make, but I decided to be like, you know what? You're right. I tell you to do that, so I got to do the same thing. And I asked his son, "Do you forgive me?" And he said, "Yeah." And he gave me the fry anyway, which he better because I paid for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right. So while we've been sitting here, I'm going to go ahead and confess. I had this horrible idea of doing this serial killer draft type thing, and I did not feel that vibe anymore. So I'm going to take my 3 pages and 3 hours worth of notes that I did and throw them out the window, and I'll have come up with a different game.
Oh, Lord.
I think we're going to enjoy. No, we're not going to music, nothing like that. We're going to play with Jamel here. So now I have sat here and wrote a list of celebrities with problems. Now we're going to talk about these celebrities, and you get to tell us if they were sitting in your chair, what the hell you would say to them.
Okay.
So we are going to start with Kanye West.
I knew he was at the top.
You already knew he was going to ask about him.
Kanye West is sitting in your chair, and first of all, would you diagnose him as manic or like something like that, or where would you feel looking at the things that he do? I do want to say one thing about Kanye West. Yeah. I really feel that his mother's death was his trigger. Because before his mother's death and all that after that death, and a lot of people said that was the person that grounded him. Do you believe in that? Like there are people who are manic that can stay grounded because they have that person in their life that can, I guess, not control them or keep them at an even pace, or whenever they go into these states, know how to make them do these things.
Yeah. I absolutely do. I mean, we talked about it earlier. It's kind of been a theme. And it's just the human connection. He had a genuine connection with someone who he cared about, and this person helped him. And I'm sure he had spurts of that at times, but he was able to be, grounded by, his mother, if that's the case. And I actually kind of think that's the theory. I'm not 100%. Like I can't legally diagnose anybody or anything like that, but anybody I haven't seen, but I suspect that that's the case as well. First thing I will tell him is take your medicine.
Yep.
Like God put medicine on this earth for a reason. Like God guided the hands of the doctors to create medicine. There is a such thing as over medication, but he ain't in that boat.
Yeah.
I don't think he in that boat. That'd be one of the first things. And then I would ask him to have some kind of healthy outlet for some of the things that he does, whether it's journal. He's an artist, so speak through his art. Some of the best art we have, whether it's music, whether it's paintings, whether it's sculptures or whatever, is people who, when they're in a struggle, they use that art as their outlet. So I would encourage him to have a healthy outlet for that. Use medication and get some healthy coping and leave the Nazis and the white supremacists alone.
Okay. All right. Anybody else got to add anything to add about Kanye West? Anything he think he didn't diagnose, or what would he be his diagnosis if you? I mean, he's already said it, and it's clear as day. He's bipolar. I think he's already said it. He has bipolar disorder, and like you see it. I'm not sure how familiar you are with bipolar, but being manic or being bipolar, or it means you have basically two poles. The manic or mania is when the person is they tend to be a little bit hyper, they don't get a little rest. That's where you see the bizarre behavior, the emotional dysregulation where they're kind of all over the place. Then the other pole is when they're down. You typically don't see celebrities when they're bipolar when they're down because they're up somewhere laying down. That's actually kind of a dangerous time for them because they still don't have that emotional regulation. But some people can suffer from suicidal ideations and possibly have suicide during that time. So he has bipolar disorder. He's admitted he was diagnosed. I think he said he was diagnosed with it a few years ago, maybe a year or two after his mom died. Okay, all right. Sounds like a good one. So all right. So the next patient is now Kanye's leaving the office now. The next patient's walking in. And you see the Pied Piper himself, R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
Yeah. So we all can say that he has some kind of sexual disorder, or what is it called? What is it called when you always want to have sex or whatever? I can't remember the term for it. I mean, it is
nympho.
Nympho. It's another thing. I can't remember.
It sounds like there is a sexual addiction there.
That's a sexual addiction.
Yeah. I think there's a sexual addiction there, but I think there's also issues with power and control there. Some pretty significant antisocial behaviors that he appears to be sexually gratified by. So that's getting more into the realms of like sex offender treatment and stuff like that. I would refer him to a specialist. That's what I would do. Yeah. Like, dude, you need a specialist and someone who specializes in sex addiction. Oh, I know, not sex addiction, but sex offender type of treatment. Which there's a lot of professionals who specialize that.
I think some of his issues may have went back to his mom too. Something.
Well, he himself was sexually abused as a kid.
Yeah, he was sexually abused. Yeah, I did about that.
And like the majority of people who commit a sexual assault were sexually abused. It's like right at 90% of people.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like usually, I know one of the things they say that whenever a person is assaulted, they usually tend to never grow from that. It just like me when I went through what I did with my dad at 11, I have triggers that, like you said, take me back to that 11-year-old. And there's a lot of people that have been sexually assaulted as a child typically don't really mature more than that. That's why they say sometimes that some females, if they were molested or this, that, and the other, their voice doesn't change. It stays, they still have that real kid voice. Is that like a thing? That's something I heard. I don't know if that's something real in your profession or.
I haven't heard of the
like
voice
that
thing, but it wouldn't surprise me. But it's a coping mechanism. So that's what you're talking about is trauma. When we experience trauma, when the undeveloped brain, which is the brain of a child, experiences trauma, it definitely impacts the rest of the way that brain develops. And not just trauma, substance abuse is the same thing. So people who use substances at a young age tend to experience the same thing. But definitely with trauma, it just impacts the wiring of the brain and, how people form connections with other beings. And it just distorts and warps a lot of brain development that happens. So yeah, that's why R. Kelly, Pied Piper, a child trauma specialist, because I don't work with children, so I would have him talk to a trauma specialist, perhaps refer him to someone who can do some cognitive processing therapy, which is a therapy that is done for trauma, but also the sex offense treatment. Like have him work with someone who can help him with sex addiction and sex offense, with giving boundaries and talk about those recovery environments and putting yourself in environments where you're going to succeed and not potentially relapse. I could do some of that, but I don't have that specialty with that, so I would definitely refer him to a specialist.
Okay, all right. Now R. Kelly gets up, he leaves out, and in comes the next person to come in will be Bill Cosby. What would you say to him? Would you give him
society?
Oh, you think Bill was set up?
Yes.
He thinks Bill's set up.
You think Bill was set up? I don't know, man.
Bruh.
No.
Y'all keep. Hey, brother, that man's about to buy NBC.
Yeah, I mean,
that man was about to buy.
Yeah, I've
a
heard
major
that
network. Huh?
Yeah. So
I heard that theory, but did they just bring up old dirt? You know what I mean? Or was it just all fabricated?
I can't say either way. I'll be 100% honest. I wasn't a lawyer. I haven't seen everything that everybody's seen. I'm not accusing falsifying documents or discrediting anybody that came forward, right?
Okay.
But it was interesting when it went down and how it went down.
That's going back to the conversation we had last week about how you feel that every major rapper or somebody who was fighting against the system in any way ended up dying, being shot, or overdosing, or whatever the case may be. You putting Bill Cosby in that same setup?
I'm not like 100% on the whole. I'm not always a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe that there are
too many coincidences.
Yes, that's what I believe.
They said the same thing. Was similar with Michael Jackson. He was about to make a major purchase with Marvel and some other stuff, and then that's when everything came out. They had to drop it, and then Disney bought the rights to it, and then relaunched it.
All right, we're going. Hold on. Let's see the doctor.
I'll let the doctor talk about talk about Bill's sickness.
And think. I mean, it is a coincidence that 30 women said, "Oh yeah, he drugged all of us." Yeah, that's kind of. But then I don't know.
Just like Deshaun Watkins, right?
It was like 50.
Just like Deshaun.
It was like 40 something.
Just like Deshaun Watkins, right?
Okay. Hold on, I'm missing. What happened with him?
The quarterback from Houston?
I don't know, man. I stopped watching football for a while. I have no idea about what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. The masseuse situation.
Yeah, and like 30 women came out down Texas, and
yeah. I remember hearing about that.
What was he?
Soon as he was up for a contract renewal, and he was saying he wanted to leave, and then all the allegations came out.
I don't know.
A year and a half later, he the highest paid dude in the league.
Nobody pays attention to anything that he.
Yeah. I think for Bill, you would have to do an assessment to see exactly what is there. But one of the stories about Bill Cosby, Hannibal Buress, although Hannibal Buress did go off on him, but man, the dude, he got a show on CNN. He got an afro.
I won't see your name.
Kamal Bell.
Okay.
He did I think a 3 or 4 part series. It's actually called "We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby." That was actually what it's called. And it goes into a lot of detail, and a lot of those stories didn't just happen. There were things there were allegations that had been there, and people had known but swept under the rug because
Bill was
money, allegedly,
because of who he was, right?
Yeah, and he was also making CBS a whole bunch of money with the Cosby Show. And we all know money talks and BS walks. But so, I would, from a clinical perspective, I would have to do an assessment to see if anything's there. The thing I would definitely focus on is the mood swings that appear to happen, that people who say he can shift from a high to a low real quick, and want to get to the bottom of that. And if that's the case, definitely need to do some kind of mood management therapy, some cognitive behavioral therapy, see what's going on with that, if there's anything further there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so when I say set up, right?
Yeah.
I mean exactly what Jamel just said. If it happened, they waited till the prime time to release it, to eliminate the power that he was about to have.
That's what they do. That is
what I mean by setup. I don't mean by setup like he didn't do it. I'm not.
That's the game of chess and power.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying about the music folk too. I'm not saying that they didn't do certain things or whatever. I'm saying that the powers that be created situations to eliminate their power.
I mean, you can say the same thing. I in my world, I got to be evidence based, but something that I do believe. I always go back to, like, when you look at when Malcolm X was assassinated, and when Martin Luther King Jr. were assassinated, they both were on the cusp of doing something that was drastically different. I can see where you're coming from. Like, historically, when you look at, we'll use Sam Cooke, yeah. I think MLK is one of the best examples, though, because I think we all can agree that capitalism rules everything.
Correct.
We got a Voting Rights Act. We got a Fair Housing Act. 1964, 1965, 1968. You start to look at what MLK was preaching and talking about. He was going in on the Vietnam War and saying, why are there so many poor people, not just black people?
Yes, he's about to unite minorities.
The Poor People's Campaign. And by the way, this is a conspiracy. This is COINTELPRO. I don't know if y'all ever heard of COINTELPRO. So the movie that had Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yep.
Well, murder of Fred Hampton. All of that stuff came out when COINTELPRO came out. So that's a counterintelligence program that J. Edgar Hoover, when he was the head of the FBI, had because he feared the, quote, Black Messiah person. So, yeah, they would be set up, and eventually, Fred Hampton was murdered. It hasn't been tied that I know of. It hasn't been tied to, by Martin Luther King Jr. assassination. It hasn't been tied to the FBI or anything like that. But we all know he had tapes on him. He recorded them. He wrote him a letter, told him to kill himself. Yep. You gotta know your history. I know your history.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But no, I can see where you're coming from, that conspiracy theory. I do think there's some truth to that.
Yeah. Well, last week we talked about it, and we talked about, because we all named if what artists you believe, if they were still alive, would have changed the music game. Van said Sam Cooke, I said Prince. Then we had Tupac and Biggie also named throughout the whole thing. Aaliyah was named also.
Yeah, I would say Aaliyah was who I would have gone with, because if you look at Aaliyah's style, she was beautiful and sexy, but she wasn't all that sexualized.
Yes,
when you compare her to like a Beyonce or something, and her star was rising.
Yeah, because she was crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
She was crossing over to the movie industry.
Yeah, I would say she
was about to go
over.
Hollywood, huh?
Yeah, she had just about had crossed over.
Yep.
At that point, yeah.
Yep.
What was she in? She was in the joint with
Romeo
Jet
Must
Li.
yeah, DMX, yeah.
Romeo Must
Yeah.
Die.
So much that. So she was definitely a rising star.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. All right, well now I've based. Oh, no, I got one more person. Bill Cosby
making
leaves
work.
the room, and Donald J. Trump walks in. What's your diagnosis?
There's nothing wrong with Donald Trump.
Narcissistic personality disorder.
There you go.
That's all it is.
There you go. But that was the quickest one he gave us.
Narcissistic personality disorder. Well, I can't diagnose anybody without like legally seeing them and stuff like that. But I don't know if y'all remember. I think it was 2017. George Conway tweeted the DSM. So the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual is like the mental health manual. So every mental health disorder is in that. He tweeted the page that has narcissistic personality disorder in there with the 9 criteria. And he said, tell me one of these that this man don't meet.
All right. It's all good. All right. So got one more before I end the show. It's something that we do a lot here. I don't know if you heard. I'm going to go ahead and give you your time on the island. So, because it sounds like you're very educated in music and arts and things like that as well. So here's your question. You're on the island. You're only allowed to take 3 albums with you. And I'm going to tell you.
Be careful.
Super
Very careful.
Okay. So you're only allowed to take 3 albums with you. What are those 3 albums?
Choose your next words wisely.
I know, right? Okay. So the first album I'm gonna have is I gotta have a gospel album. It's gonna be I Need You Now by Smokey Norfolk, because if I'm on an island, I'm gonna need some inspiration, so I'm gonna be by myself.
Okay. That was the safe pick.
Yeah.
Give him the say. He got to say. That's your only say.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
What we look like Friday gospel album.
So that's but I got other
Kurt
ones.
Franklin though. You know what I'm saying?
If you said Kurt Franklin, I would have fried him. We would have went in on that one. I was like, you ain't gonna be on that island talking about stomp. Stop playing with me.
Yeah, so you know what? The second one, this may be a little bit of a controversial pick, but I'm gonna pick and then there was X, DMX.
Okay.
That's not controversial. That album is fire. Like, what are you talking about?
So the way I see it, it gets you amped, right? It gets you ready to go. So if I figure if I'm on the island, I'm gonna be working to get off the island. I'm gonna need something that's gonna get my blood going. That's gonna get me moving. So
I'm with you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do
just
that.
Listen to the gospel joint first, because don't go from X to that joint, bro.
Yeah, you listen to the gospel when you first wake up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you wake up to DMX, you're gonna get in a fight that day. That's just the thing. All right, and then the last album. All right, so the last album, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this artist, man.
Here it comes.
I know, here it goes.
Always mess up the third one. Always do it.
This is it. So there's this group called the Foreign Exchange.
All right. Okay.
Not sure if y'all heard of them. It's R&B and kind of hip hop duo. The dude, Fonte Coleman, he sings and raps. He's from North Carolina too, so where I'm from, representing NC.
Hey, my wife from North Carolina, so I'm going to ask, and I'm going to pick it up next week's podcast.
Ask her about Foreign Exchange and Little Brother. She gonna know about those. She gonna know about it. But
oh no, dog! I'm googling it, dog.
Google Leave It All Behind. The album Leave It All Behind.
Leave It All Behind in 2011.
Yeah, Leave It All Behind by the Foreign Exchange. Those are my 3 albums.
All right. Yeah, you got a week. Matter of fact, you actually got 10 days because we're not filming on Easter. But I promise you, this at least 2. Matty Ice probably gonna be 3 because he's gonna listen to it.
Listen to it.
I know that me and Rodney will listen to the whole album, man. If it ain't right,
I'm just saying it was nominated. It was nominated for best R&B album. I think it was like 20. 14, 15, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So,
This album wasn't nominated. You mean they were nominated?
I know the album was nominated for Best R&B.
Not in 20, because it came out in 2008. It wouldn't be 2015.
Oh, 2000. God dang, I'm old. 2008. Man.
It's all good. Don't worry.
I'm looking at this joint and it looks super suspect, brother.
It do. It do.
Yeah.
It do.
But, yo, this joint, first of all, these dudes look like Milli Vanilli. Hold on. What are you talking to that picture?
I didn't get that. I see the album cover, but I'm going next one.
It's like it looked like, oh, that's a white dude.
Yeah, it's a white dude. It's a black dude and a white dude.
Like Malcolm Jamal Warner and
I don't judge.
They made the album.
Yeah, you gotta listen to it though. You gotta listen to it.
I gotta listen to it because I like Linkin Park. I like all the rock and roll groups, so it's cool. Just know what's the day? Hold on.
Look,
Ronnie, we will reconvene this conversation on the 16th.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna play out just a snippet of.
Don't do it. Don't do it right now. Like,
all right.
Stop playing it. It's going to be a whole other. Yeah, then we're going
I think y'all gonna be surprised. I think y'all gonna be surprised with it.
Yeah, all the seriousness and respect is over.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We all 100% joke time.
Yeah, if we can't respect your top three, we might have to throw out the whole interview. We might be like,
I know, right? Hey, look. Though.
He said over the
I'm gonna tell y'all how confident I am. I'm so confident that y'all gonna at least like 4 songs. 4 songs.
Okay.
4. That's it. 4.
All right.
I listen to the whole album.
What's the over-under one?
Over-under on full.
Okay.
Over-under on full.
And we'll be honest. If I like 4, I'll tell you, I don't believe it's going to happen, but we'll go ahead and we're going to respect it for now. We will get back up. Yeah, especially, once you write the book and we have you back on,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
You write the book and we have you back on.
It's going to take forever to write that book. Like,
They go get me.
Yeah, we're going to definitely fry you about that. Does anybody have any closing remarks or closing questions or anything that they want to say before we end the show today?
Nah, just thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely appreciate your service and, definitely on what you're doing for mental health, not just in the Black community, but I'm sure, just mental health period for all people because, man, everybody is dealing with it in one form or another.
Yeah, definitely. And if you don't mind, can we go ahead and induct you as our mental health dad mentality, mental health specialist? If we ever have another guest or somebody on here that maybe we feel is in the realm that, you might want to talk to them or not even talk to them, but just be hang out with us and help, because we do things with people who have, been to prison and they're coming out, they're trying to get themselves together and stuff like that. And we have conversations. I do plan on having a conversation with a guy about PTSD who has gone through it and went through it. And, I think he was Army, if I remember correctly. But, how he went through it, how he got out of it and stuff like that. But, you just be guy, I'll reach out to you every once in a while, and if you want to come hang out with us, you're definitely always invited.
Yeah, brother. Of course, man. I accept the invitation. Look, after I retire, I'll have me a beard. I have my hair gonna grow out. I'm gonna go through something because I'm gonna be free. So
congratulations, congratulations, brother. I hope you retire, get to finish writing your book and do whatever it is that you want to do, man. It's all about life and love and family, So so thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for, being down to have fun. And even though, I came up with this terrible idea about doing this tournament bracket, you were still positive about it, unlike my co-host. But, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Hey, look, he gonna make y'all do that next time. Just get ready.
No,
I already know.
The vibe was there. You know, it was a thought. Hey man, throw it on the wall, see if it sticks, brother. I'm not put it this way. I'm just more upset I wasted all that time writing down all this stuff about serial killers. It was
you and me both. I'm trying to be a good
Hey,
host.
Hey,
You know what? I know me and Albaz was not gonna be prepared for that. I already knew we wasn't gonna be prepared.
You know what? I might do a bonus episode, dog. We might have to figure this out. Like, you know, want to get back on. We'll talk about it off the air, but I kind of want to go through it just to do it as a bonus episode because, you know, after the whole vibe was here and this, that, and other, I came up with the other idea just off the whim, and I felt like it was way better. So, appreciate all your honesty. Hey, fellas, thank each and every one of y'all. Producer Ev, appreciate you being here and everybody helping to make dad mentality a part of the thing. Remember, if you want to send us your questions, you can go to dad_mentality@yahoo.com. We also have the YouTube page that's getting ready to go up where you can watch this broadcast live. And don't forget, I'll be streaming every day between 4:30 and 6:30. Just putting more content out there. Watch us play games, hang out with us, and just have a good time. The chat is always live then, too. It's on Twitch. That is the Beast One on Twitch. You can definitely catch me there. And once again, just thank y'all for everything that y'all do. Thank you for, remember, be positive. I do have a little quote of the week this week, and it is, when people tell you who they are, believe them. That's the end of that. Hey, it was fun, fellas. I enjoyed this. Another great episode. Thank you for everything. Thank you, retiring Jamel Garrett, so Sergeant Jamel Garrett, who's going to, you know, enjoy life and thank you for all your service that you've done. And if I'm ever in a hostage negotiation, I hope they call you.
I appreciate that.
I
hope he not listening to DMX.
Yeah,
I know, right?
I hope he's listening to it. This is the foreign exchange. That's the
Smoky Norfolk is what
the exchange look 211. They probably that was that. But anyway, hey, thank everybody for here. Another Dad Mentality episode. God bless you.
Good night, gentlemen. Thank you so much. God bless.